I'm Evelyn Carter, and I stood backstage at my college graduation, hands trembling as I waited for my name to be called. The auditorium was packed with families celebrating their children's achievements. Somewhere in that crowd sat my mother, Margaret Carter, probably checking her phone, counting the minutes until this was over. She'd made it clear this morning that attending was an inconvenience. For 22 years, she'd told me I was worthless, that I'd never accomplish anything meaningful. Every school project, every good grade, every small victory was met with the same cold dismissal. Don't get too proud, Evelyn. You're not special. Those words had carved themselves into my bones. But today was different. Today I had a secret she didn't know about. The dean stepped to the podium, adjusting his microphone. And now for our highest honor, he began. My heart hammered. This was it. The moment that would change everything. Valedictorian of the class of 2024. Evelyn Carter. The crowd erupted in applause. I walked onto that stage feeling like I was floating. 4 years of sleepless nights, of working 3 jobs to pay tuition because my mother refused to help, of proving to myself that her words were lies. All of it had led to this moment. But the dean wasn't finished. He raised his hand for silence, a huge smile on his face. And I have another announcement, he said, looking directly at me. Evelyn Carter's senior thesis project on sustainable energy solutions has been selected to receive the National Innovation Award. The applause grew louder. I couldn't breathe. Her project will receive a $2 million grant for further development and implementation. The auditorium exploded. People were standing, cheering. But I couldn't hear any of it, because in the front row I saw my mother. Margaret sat frozen, her face pale as a ghost. Around her, people were whispering, pointing, congratulating her. She'd spent years telling everyone I was a disappointment. Now, in front of hundreds of witnesses, I'd been called a genius. Her lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. I somehow made it through my valedictorian speech, though I barely remember what I said. My eyes kept drifting to that front row, watching my mother's face grow harder with each word of praise I received. When the ceremony ended, graduates swarmed their families with hugs and photos. I walked slowly toward where my mother stood, alone, arms crossed. "Mom," I said quietly. "Did you hear? You embarrassed me," she hissed, cutting me off. Her voice was low, venomous. "You think you're better than me now? Walking up there, accepting awards like you're someone important." I stared at her, stunned. I just graduated valedictorian. I won a national award. "You made me look like a fool," she snapped. Everyone kept asking why I never mentioned my genius daughter. What was I supposed to say? That you're an arrogant show-off who's forgotten where she came from. People were starting to stare. My moment of joy crumbled into dust. "Let's go," Margaret said sharply, turning toward the parking lot. "I've wasted enough time on this circus." The car ride home was silent and suffocating. I stared out the window, my graduation cap clutched in my lap, trying not to cry. I'd spent my whole life seeking her approval, thinking maybe someday she'd look at me with pride. Instead, my greatest achievement had only made her hate me more. When we got home, I went straight to my room to pack. In 2 weeks, I'd start my internship at a research facility in California. The grant money would cover my relocation and give me the resources to continue my work. I was finally escaping. As I pulled clothes from my closet, I noticed my mother's bedroom door was open across the hall. She was in the kitchen, loudly banging pots around. Almost without thinking, I walked into her room. I'd been searching for something my whole life. Some explanation for why she treated me this way. Maybe I'd find it now. In her dresser drawer, beneath folded sweaters, I found a torn envelope. It was addressed to me. The postmark was dated 12 years ago. My hands shook as I pulled the letter from the envelope. The return address was from a law office in Boston. Inside, the paper was yellowed with age, but the words were clear. "Dear Evelyn, if you're reading this, it means Margaret kept my secrets. Don't trust her. The fund I set up for you, make sure she didn't. The letter ended abruptly, torn in half. The signature at the bottom made my heart stop. My father had died when I was 10. I barely remembered him. Just vague impressions of a kind man who used to help me with science projects in the garage. My mother never talked about him. She'd packed away all his photos, erased him from our lives like he'd never existed. Now, holding this torn letter, I realized she'd been hiding something. What fund? What secrets? I heard footsteps on the stairs. I shoved the letter into my pocket just as my mother appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing in my room?" she demanded, her eyes narrowing. "Nothing," I said quickly, trying to move past her. But she grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in painfully. "You were snooping." Her voice was cold, dangerous. "What did you find?" "I wasn't. Don't lie to me, Evelyn." She shoved me aside and went straight to the dresser, yanking open drawers. When she saw the disturbed sweaters, her face twisted with rage. "You had no right." She spotted papers I hadn't noticed before, tucked in the back of the drawer. Before I could react, she grabbed them and ran downstairs. I chased after her. "Mom, what are those? What are you hiding?" In the living room, she was already lighting the fireplace. It was May, 70 degrees outside, but she knelt there feeding papers into the flames. "Mom, stop." I lunged forward, trying to grab them. She shoved me back hard enough that I fell. "You have no idea what I've done for you," she spat, watching the papers curl and blacken. "No idea what I've sacrificed." I managed to grab one half-burned document before she could feed it to the fire. The paper was hot, edges blackened, but I could still read parts of it. Legal letterhead. Carter Education Trust Fund. Beneficiary Evelyn Carter. Established by Jonathan Carter. Total value $250,000. My vision blurred. Trust fund. My father had left me a trust fund for my education. $250,000. Enough to have paid for my entire college education, to have saved me from years of working myself to exhaustion, from the student loans that would take decades to repay. "You knew about this," I whispered, looking up at my mother. She stood over me, her face hard. "Of course I knew about it. Where is it? Where's my money?" Margaret laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Gone. I signed it away 12 years ago, right after your father died. Told the lawyers you'd dropped out of school, that you were a lost cause. They released the funds to me for family expenses." The room spun. I was 10 years old. How could I have dropped out? "They didn't ask questions," she said simply. "I was your mother. They trusted me." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My own mother had stolen my inheritance, had let me struggle and suffer when there had been money meant specifically for me. "Why?" I finally managed to ask. "Why would you do that?" Margaret's expression shifted, something almost like satisfaction crossing her face. "You think money makes you successful. I kept you humble, Evelyn. I made sure you had to work for everything. And look at you now, valedictorian grant winner. You did that because I pushed you. You stole from me. I taught you resilience," she snapped back. "Your father would have spoiled you, made you weak. I made you strong." I stood up, the burned paper still clutched in my hand. "You're not going to get away with this." "Who's going to stop me?" she asked calmly. "You have no proof. That trust was dissolved years ago, all legal and proper. You're going to California in 2 weeks with your fancy grant. Just take your success and leave me alone." She turned away like the conversation was over, like she hadn't just admitted to destroying my life. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. I spent the next 3 days at my friend Sarah's apartment, trying to process what I'd learned. Sarah had been my roommate freshman year and had seen firsthand how my mother treated me. "You need to report her," Sarah insisted. "What she did was fraud." "I don't have proof," I said, staring at the half-burned document. "She destroyed everything else. There has to be a record somewhere. Lawyers, banks, someone." I was researching trust fund law on Sarah's laptop when there was a knock at the door. Sarah answered it, then called out, "Evelyn? There's someone here to see you." A man stood in the doorway, probably in his late 50s, with kind eyes and nervous hands. "Evelyn Carter?" he asked. "I'm Daniel Morrison. I was a colleague of your father's." My heart jumped. "You knew my dad?" "I did. We worked together at the research institute before he died." He glanced at Sarah, then back at me. "Your father asked me to watch over you to make sure you were okay. I've been keeping tabs from a distance, and I saw your graduation ceremony. Congratulations." Daniel came inside, and we sat at Sarah's small kitchen table. "Why are you here now?" I asked carefully. He pulled a small flash drive from his pocket. "Because it's time. Your father knew your mother might try something after he was gone. He was sick for months before he died, and during that time he recorded something. He asked me to give this to you when you turned 18, but Margaret made it impossible for me to reach you. She changed your phone number, moved houses. I lost track until I saw your name in the university's press release." He slid the flash drive across the table to me. "Your father wanted you to know the truth." My hands trembled as I took it. "Truth about what?" "Watch it," he said gently. "Then call me if you need anything." He handed me a business card. I meant what I said. Your father was my best friend. I owe it to him to help you. After Daniel left, Sarah and I stared at the flash drive. "You ready for this?" she asked. I wasn't sure I was, but I plugged it into the laptop anyway. The video that appeared on screen made my throat tighten. My father looked so much older than I remembered. Thin, pale, sitting in what looked like a hospital room. But his eyes were clear as he looked at the camera. "Evelyn, sweetheart," he began, his voice weak but steady. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone, and you're finally old enough to understand. I need you to know that your mother—" He paused, coughing. "Margaret forged my signature on several documents. She wanted control of everything, my research, my patents, the money. I found out too late, when I was already sick. By then I couldn't fight her legally. I was dying." Tears streamed down my face. Sarah put a hand on my shoulder. "But I made sure to protect one thing," Dad continued. "My invention. The patent for the energy conversion system I developed. It's worth millions, Evelyn. And legally it belongs to you. I registered it in your name when you were born. Margaret tried to get me to transfer it, but I refused." He leaned closer to the camera. "Find the patent. It's your legacy. The number is ET 4472. JC. Don't let her take this from you too." The video ended. I sat frozen, my father's face still burned into my mind. Sarah broke the silence. "He said there's a patent in your name. Worth millions." I nodded slowly, trying to process it. My father had left me more than just money. He'd left me his life's work. "We need to find it," I said, standing up. "If there's a patent in my name, there have to be documents, records. Where would your mother keep something like that?" Sarah asked. "I don't know. But I know where to start looking." That night, I snuck back into my mother's house while she was at her weekly book club. My heart pounded as I climbed the stairs to the attic. I'd only been up here a few times as a kid. It was full of boxes, old furniture, things my mother had shoved away and forgotten. I dug through box after box. Old tax returns, receipts, photographs I'd never seen of my father. And then, in a metal lockbox hidden behind the Christmas decorations, I found it. Blueprints, technical drawings, and a patent certificate with a seal and official stamps. The patent was indeed numbered ET 4472 JC, exactly what my father had said. But the name on it wasn't mine. It read Margaret Carter, inventor. I photographed every page with my phone, my hands shaking with rage. She'd done it. Somehow, my mother had transferred my father's patent into her name. But as I dug deeper into the lockbox, I found more documents. Incorporation papers for a company called Novogenics Technologies. Board member list. And their third name from the top. Margaret Carter, Chief Technology Officer. My mother had used my father's invention to build a company. I pulled up Novogenics on my phone. The website was sleek, professional, leading innovations in sustainable energy conversion. Their technology, from what I could see, was exactly what my father had described in the video. The same system he'd invented. The same patent that should have been mine. I heard a car door slam outside. My mother was home early. I shoved everything back into the lockbox, grabbed my phone, and barely made it down the attic ladder before I heard her key in the front door. I called Daniel the next morning and told him everything I'd found. "I need your help," I said. "I need to prove that patent was stolen from me." "I can do better than that," Daniel said. "I worked for Novogenics 3 years ago, right after they started. Your mother hired me because I'd worked with your father. But when I started asking questions about the patent origin, she forced me out. She fired you. Worse. She destroyed my reputation in the industry. Made it so I couldn't get work anywhere. Evelyn, your mother isn't just cruel. She's ruthless. She'll bury anyone who threatens her success." A cold determination settled over me. Then we'll have to be smarter than her. Over the next week, Daniel and I built our case. He had copies of my father's original research notes, documents that predated the patent filing. We found the lawyer who'd handled the trust fund dissolution and convinced him to give us sealed records. Everything pointed to systematic fraud. But we needed more. "There's a Novogenics gala next month," Daniel said. "Industry people, investors, and their corporate archives are in the same building. If we could get access during the event." "You want me to break into their archives," I said. "I want you to get what's legally yours," Daniel corrected. "Everything your mother built, she built on your father's work. Work that belonged to you. Sometimes the legal system moves too slowly. Sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands." I knew it was risky. If we got caught, I could lose everything. My grant, my internship, possibly even face criminal charges. But the thought of my mother profiting from stolen work, of her continuing to get away with it, made my blood boil. "Tell me the plan," I said. Daniel's plan was surprisingly thorough. The gala was a fundraising event, black tie, with hundreds of guests. He had a contact who could get me in as a hired assistant for one of the catering companies. "You'll have access to the building," he explained. "The archives are on the 3rd floor. I'll create a distraction during the main event. You'll have maybe 20 minutes. What am I looking for? Anything that shows the patent transfer. Forged signatures, backdated documents, communications between your mother and the patent office. It'll all be in her personal files." The night of the gala, I wore a black dress and a borrowed catering uniform jacket. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I walked into the Novogenics building. The main hall was magnificent, filled with people in expensive clothes drinking champagne and discussing deals worth millions. I served appetizers, kept my head down, waited for Daniel's signal. At exactly 9 p.m., the fire alarm on the 1st floor went off. Not a real emergency, just enough to cause confusion and pull security away from the upper levels. I slipped away from the catering area and took the service stairs to the 3rd floor. The archives room was locked, but Daniel had given me a copied keycard from his time working there. I swiped it, praying it still worked. The lock clicked green. I was in. Rows of filing cabinets lined the walls. I found the section labeled Corporate Legal, Patents and IP. My phone's flashlight illuminated drawer after drawer until I found it. A folder labeled Project Helix, ET 4472, JC Patent Transfer. Inside were documents that made my stomach turn. Forged signatures. My father's handwriting clearly traced. Emails between my mother and a lawyer discussing acquisition of assets from deceased spouse's estate. I was photographing the last page when I heard footsteps in the hallway. My heart stopped. The door opened. My mother stood there in a silver evening gown, her face a mask of cold fury. "I knew you'd come," she said quietly. "Security called me when they saw your photo on the service entrance camera. I've been watching you sneak around all evening." She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. We were alone. You have no idea what you're playing with, she continued, her voice deadly calm. That patent saved our lives. Your father was brilliant, but he had no business sense. He would have given his work away for free, let other people profit while we starved. So you stole it, I said, my voice shaking. I protected it, she corrected. And I protected you. Every luxury you've had, every opportunity, came from the money that patent generated. You let me work 3 jobs. You watched me struggle. Because you needed to learn. Her voice rose for the first time. Your father was obsessed with making you proud, with leaving you some grand legacy. That obsession is what killed him. I stared at her. What are you talking about? He was sick for over a year, my mother said bitterly. But instead of resting, instead of fighting the cancer, he spent every moment in that garage, perfecting his invention. He said it had to be perfect for you, that it would be your future. He worked himself to death, Evelyn. For you. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's not true. Isn't it? Every time I begged him to rest, he'd say, I have to finish this for Evelyn. You killed him with your very existence. I felt tears streaming down my face, but then I saw something in her expression. A flicker of satisfaction. She wanted me to believe this. Wanted me to carry that guilt. I thought of the video my father had made, the gentle love in his eyes when he talked about me. He hadn't been working himself to death for me. He'd been trying to protect me from her. You're lying, I said quietly. My father loved his work. And he loved me. You're the one who killed him. Prove it, she challenged. Before I could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at it, then back at me. Security's on their way. You're going to be arrested for corporate espionage. But I wasn't alone. Daniel appeared in the doorway behind my mother, holding his phone up. I've been recording everything, he said. Every word. Including your admission about forging documents. My mother's face went white. You have no right. The patent office will be very interested in this, Daniel continued calmly. As will the SEC, corporate fraud built on a stolen patent. That's serious time, Margaret. Pulled out my phone. And I've uploaded copies of everything in this file to a secure cloud server. Even if you destroy these, the evidence exists. We heard voices in the hallway. Security was coming. Daniel grabbed my arm. Time to go. We ran. Down the service stairs, out through the kitchen where confused caterers scattered out of our way. Behind us, I heard my mother screaming for security to stop us. We burst out into the parking lot, into Daniel's waiting car. As we sped away, I looked back at the building. Through the windows, I could see my mother standing in the lobby, her face twisted with rage. What now? I asked, breathing hard. Now, Daniel said, we go to the authorities. And we finish this. The next morning, I walked into a lawyer's office with Daniel and every piece of evidence we'd gathered. The lawyer, a woman named Patricia Chan who specialized in corporate fraud, listened to our story with growing interest. This is substantial, she said, reviewing the documents. The forged signatures alone constitute fraud. Combined with the theft of a minor's inheritance and the trust fund misappropriation, we have a strong criminal case. How long will it take? Yes. These things move slowly, Patricia warned. Months, possibly years. And your mother will fight back. She has money and resources. Let her fight, I said. I'm not backing down. But Patricia was right about my mother fighting back. 2 days later, I received a notice that my bank accounts had been frozen. My mother had filed a lawsuit claiming I'd stolen proprietary information from Novogenics. The grant money for my research project was suddenly tied up in legal proceedings. My internship called, worried about the controversy. We need to discuss whether this is the right time. I knew what they meant. They were going to rescind the offer. Everything I'd worked for was crumbling. 1 week later, I woke up to pounding on my door. Police. They had a warrant for my arrest. Evelyn Carter, you're being charged with corporate espionage and theft of trade secrets, the officer said, reading from a document. I couldn't believe this was happening. They put handcuffs on me, walked me out of Sarah's apartment in front of all her neighbors. At the station I was fingerprinted, photographed, processed like a criminal. All while news vans gathered outside. My mother had given an interview that was playing on every channel. "My daughter is troubled," she said, dabbing at fake tears. "She's always been jealous of my success. I tried to help her, supported her education, and this is how she repays me. I'm heartbroken." The reporter nodded sympathetically. "Your daughter claims you stole a patent from her late father." "My husband's work became mine when he died," Margaret said smoothly. "That's how marriage works. Everything was legal and proper. Evelyn is confused, probably mentally unstable. I hope she gets the help she needs." I watched from a holding cell, rage burning in my chest. She was going to win. She was going to destroy me completely. But then something unexpected happened. While I was being processed, Daniel had contacted someone. A letter arrived at the jail for me that afternoon. "Ms. Carter, I know what your mother did. I worked at Novogenics for 5 years. I have evidence that can help you. I want to meet." It was signed only with initials. Ms. Patricia arranged for my release on bail. Sarah's parents put up their house as collateral, a kindness that made me cry. That evening I met Ms. at a coffee shop downtown. She was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with tired eyes and a nervous energy. "I'm Maya Sullivan," she said. "I'm the lead engineer at Novogenics. Or I was until I resigned this morning. Why did you contact me?" She pulled out a hard drive. "Because I'm tired of being complicit. I knew the patent history was questionable. I found files your mother thought she'd deleted. Video footage of her and the company lawyer forging documents. Emails discussing how to cover up the patent transfer. Everything." Maya's hands shook as she handed me the drive. "Your father's invention changed my life. I got into engineering because of his work. When I found out what Margaret had done to him, I couldn't stay silent anymore. With Maya's evidence, everything changed. Patricia filed motions to dismiss the charges against me. She submitted the hard drive to the court, and within days, the judge ordered an emergency hearing. I sat in that courtroom 3 weeks later, watching my mother's lawyers scramble. Patricia presented everything methodically. The forged signatures, now confirmed by handwriting experts. The emails discussing the cover-up. And the damning security footage Maya had recovered showing my mother and her lawyer carefully tracing my father's signature onto patent transfer documents. The courtroom was silent as the video played. You could see my mother laughing as she practiced the signature, making a joke about, "Jonathan always had such a flourish." When it ended, the judge looked at my mother with pure disgust. "Ms. Carter, do you have anything to say for yourself?" My mother stood, her face still composed, still trying to play the dignified victim. But her voice shook. "That footage is taken out of context. I was simply committing fraud," the judge interrupted. "I've seen enough. I'm ruling in favor of the plaintiff on all counts." The judge's ruling was comprehensive. All patents originally developed by Jonathan Carter were to be immediately restored to his estate, with me as the sole beneficiary. Margaret Carter was stripped of her position at Novogenics and charged with fraud, embezzlement, and forgery. The company itself would be placed under independent review to determine what other improprieties had occurred under her leadership. As the bailiff led my mother out of the courtroom, she stopped and looked back at me. Our eyes met for what I knew would be the last time. "You think this makes you better than me?" she asked, her voice quiet but venomous. I stood up, meeting her gaze. "No," I said clearly. "It makes me free." I watched as they led her away. I felt no triumph, no joy in her downfall. Just a bone-deep exhaustion and relief. It was finally over. In the weeks that followed, my life transformed. The grant was reinstated. My internship welcomed me back. The patents in my name were valued at over $20 million. I could fund any research I wanted, could build the life my father had dreamed of for me. But the sweetest moment came 2 months after the trial.